Hello, everyone. I'm Arthur Rishi. I'm the co-executive director of Boston Landmarks Orchestra, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this live conversation, the latest in our series of interviews, demonstrations, performances, some live, some pre-recorded recently, some taken from our archives. We hope that these interludes, as we're calling them, will give us all a chance to learn more about some of the great people we work with, some of the interesting projects we've done together over the years, and also inspire us as we look forward to the time when we can all gather together in person soon. During the course of the discussion today, if you have any questions, please use the comments feature on Facebook, and I will relay as many of your questions as I can to our guests. At Boston Landmarks Orchestra, we believe that orchestral music is really about community and collaboration at its heart. And so we've had the pleasure of working with some very inspiring and talented people over the years. Today's guest has brought his unique blend of energy, optimism, and musical talent to the young people at Mattapan Teen Center and at Camp Harborview, two of our closest and most valued partners. And he's brought young musicians from those places to our stage at the Hat Shell to join the orchestra and perform with us and Maestro Wilkins in some very memorable pieces. So joining us now is Maestro Christopher Wilkins, music director of the Boston Landmarks Orchestra, and our special guest, Devin Ferreira.
Hi, Devin.
Hi, how you doing? Thank you, Arthur.
Fantastic. Great to see you, Devin.
What a pleasure it is to be able to chat with you tonight.
It's always that way. You have such personal warmth and bring such comfort to the people around you, which is why you're revered in these schools and summer programs that invite you and that we love to participate with. You must come from a loving family.
I definitely do. And I'm up here in Maine right now and enjoying some family time. And,
family up there with you?
Yeah, we're up here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And where are you exactly?
So like central Maine.
Yeah.
Sort of close to Augusta.
So 4 hours, 5 hours from Boston?
Probably like 3.5, 4 hours.
Yeah. And you grew up there, Devin. Was it your goal to become a musician, were you just sort of drawn to it and it took its own course?
I would say it's something that I've always been really passionate about my entire life. It was kind of, my escape, the thing that I did, when I needed to, get my energy out and to be creative. Music was my favorite thing. And then it wasn't until maybe later in high school when I discovered, recording music, my passion for recording, my passion for performance. And then I started to think maybe I could, pursue this as a career option. And that was kind of what led me down that path.
Was that part of jazz band or did you have a recording studio you worked with that you loved?
Yep, I did. So I did play in the concert band for a few of the years as a saxophonist. And I did play in jazz band my senior year. But the recording studio I had built with one of my friends, Noah, that was where I really learned to love like the recording arts. And we got introduced to, an older group of, rappers and singers who had a recording studio, and they kind of showed us what a more professional studio looked like. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the creative process of writing, recording. And then once we started doing shows, I finally felt like I had found my true passion.
Shows meaning like hip hop shows, rock shows,
hip hop concerts.
Yeah.
So we would rent some equipment from the local like music store, and we would talk to the venues. We used to talk to this like smoothie bar and see if they would let us have a show there. And they would, let us have a show, and we would charge our friends $3 to get in, and we would put on a great show for people. And then
any videos of those old shows?
I actually do have some videos of that stuff.
Can we post some of them?
I'll share some of that stuff with you guys.
That'd be pretty cool. So that lit up your life.
It did.
As a teenager.
It sure did.
Yeah. And then you came to UMass Lowell, is that right?
I did. So, yep, I went and I pursued a degree in music performance with a focus in music business from UMass Lowell. And I played saxophone there, and I continued to learn about the industry and got to hone my skills as a rapper saxophonist.
Yeah. And when you were at UMass Lowell, did you have a clear sense of what your trajectory was, what your goals were? Have you kind of followed the course you thought you were going to follow?
Well, yes and no. Yes, in that I always knew I wanted to be a recording artist, and I knew that I loved songwriting, recording, and performing. I wanted that to always be a part of my life. But around, I think it was going into I think it was between my sophomore and my junior year, I started working at Camp Harborview. And I know we're going to talk about that more, but once that happened, it really sort of changed my trajectory to a degree, because my initial plan was, okay, I'm going to either work for or own my own record label was my plan. But when I started working with young people, I just found so much fulfillment in it. And I wanted to do that as much as possible. So I kind of pivoted. I mean, I kept music and recording as a central part of it, but I really dove into community work and youth work and leadership development programming and designing and implementing youth music programs.
Yeah, and you have truly an amazing gift in that area in sharing what you love to do with young people. The first couple of times that we spoke to folks at Camp Harborview or at Boys and Girls Clubs, when your name would come up, it's like all conversation would stop and the room would just light up and people would just say, oh man, Devin is the best. So it didn't take us long to be in touch with you, and we've done some absolutely just wonderful stuff together. Mm-hmm. And so I want to talk about Camp Harborview in just a second, but I just want to back up for a moment and say a little bit more about whether your interest in music comes from your family, or is it more your circle of friends? Do you have siblings or your parents involved? Just what did it look like up there outside of Augusta, Maine?
Well, so my mom is a writer and she's very creative, and she was the type that would get me any type of like lessons, or like if I wanted to do art lessons, she would make it happen. Piano, guitar, whatever I was into, she was very supportive of kind of, supporting me doing anything that I could, imagine to do. And my dad is a great lover of music. So he's always listening to music, and he had a great record collection, and just, there was always music being played. And then I think I was 8 years old and I first started wanting to get into the saxophone, and I didn't really have to ask too many times before, my mom took me to go get one. And so, at that point I had played a couple of instruments, but once I got the saxophone, it really stuck. And it, when you pick that instrument up and you play it for the first time, I just knew I loved it. It was like a part of who I was.
Yeah, I think a lot of people say the saxophone is like an extension of the voice, or it's like a second voice for people who play it well. And since you're a singer, mm-hmm. that kind of makes sense. It's just sort of putting out something that has this similar kind of volume and range and size as the human voice.
Yeah, it felt organic. And then, so I was about 8 when I started playing that consistently. And then, kind of around that time, like there's these old recordings we have on cassette tape of me kind of like just singing and freestyling and banging on instruments and stuff like that. So it was like, before I even really knew what I was doing this, like I wasn't never intentionally doing it. It was just part of the way I like to express myself.
Yeah.
And then when I was like 10 or 11, I really discovered hip hop. One of my cousins kind of showed me all these awesome albums, and I'd only heard a little bit here and there, but once I had access to all the music, I just started really identifying with that. And then after that, made it my objective to try to acquire these albums. So one CD at a time, I would get an album and you study it and you memorize the whole entire thing. You listen to it hundreds of times, and then you try to get one more. And that was kind of when I first started to realize, like, I'm in love with the thing. And then kind of it developed from there.
And you'd memorize them and you'd be able to rap the lyrics.
Yep.
And then you were probably writing your own lyrics as well.
Around that time is when it started, when I was like 12, or when I was 12, I started like dabbling and really writing my own rhymes. And then when I was 13, I met a great friend who moved from Pittsburgh to our school up in Maine, and we started like a rap group together. And he's still one of my closest friends to this day. So he might even be tuned in right now, Noah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a lot comes together here. Your mom's a writer, right? So there's some of the writing in you.
Mm-hmm.
There's your interest in hip hop. There's the fact that you sing and you play sax, and that inevitably means that you improvise, or you like to improvise to some degree.
Right.
And then we spoke about your coming to Camp Harborview and finding a way to share all of that. But that's not how you began at Camp Harborview, as I understand.
Right. So, yeah, I started at Camp Harborview as a lifeguard. So, you know, I have a background. When I was a freshman in high school, I got my lifeguard certification. So that was like my, part-time job. My summer job was lifeguarding at pools and stuff and at lakefronts. Well, I think the way it worked out was I kind of applied late to Camp Harborview because I had just found out about it because I was at Lowell at the time. And they're like, well, we don't need any more camp counselors, but we see here that you're a lifeguard. If you want to be a lifeguard, we'll hire you, on the spot. And I was like, because they're like, we need lifeguards. I said, whatever, sign me up.
Yeah.
And that was how that began. So
yeah,
I started on the pool deck.
So Devin, for people who don't know, just say a paragraph. What is Camp Harborview? So
Camp Harborview is a wonderful summer camp. That's located on Long Island in the Boston Harbor Islands, and it's for campers ages 11 to 14, and it's for primarily inner city Boston youth. And I think last time I checked, it only costs the campers like $5 for the whole entire summer for 4 weeks. It's developed a lot, but it's like I know they're providing them meals, they're providing them. Last time I knew, like water bottles and different things to make their camp experience. And they've got, everything from like aquatics to ropes course to music and arts, athletics, pretty much everything you can imagine, sailing, kayaking. And it's really a really special place where young people can go and have an incredible summer experience.
Yeah. And a lot of the Boston philanthropic community has been involved. It was the creation of Jack Connors and Menino at the time. I know the Red Sox and the Patriots have both been very involved and built ball fields out there.
Sure.
When you arrived, I don't think there was a music program, but now the arts are really very central to the experience.
Right.
And it's a big enrollment. I think it was 600 kids for each session, 700 kids, something like that.
It's a big number for sure.
Yeah.
And they also serve, like there's a leadership development program, like Leaders in Training. So they also have like a large amount of like 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old young people who take a leadership role as like junior counselors or leaders in training, as they call it. So it's like they're really serving like a wide spectrum of ages of young people as well.
Right. And it started just as a July program or an August program, but now they have programming year-round.
Year-round program. So they opened up a year-round building that I've been able to visit a couple times, and it's just awesome. I'm so happy to see them, getting to offer that programming. It's just great.
Yeah, it's really great. Okay, so there you are. You're a lifeguard. You're teaching swimming, presumably.
Yeah, doing some
instructing. Is it required for kids to swim?
When I was there, almost every young person was swimming.
Yeah.
We were teaching swimming lessons, and we were giving this, a lot of the young people, like, there's a deep end test. So the young people wanted to be able to, I think you got to, like, I can't remember exactly what the test was, but you had to swim back and forth, without holding on to the side and tread water for a little bit before you could swim in the deep end.
Such an important skill.
Right. So a lot of young people every day were passing the deep end test, and, and they would set goals, and some people would be like, I wanted to do that. I wanted to pass this, and I want to do this. And a lot of times you'd see them, achieving their goals by the end of the summer. Like there's aquatics goals, and, you needed to pass your deep end test to use the kayaks and stuff like that too. So it was like, there was a good incentive, for the young people to learn how to swim.
Meanwhile, your impact on the kids started to grow.
Right.
And shift into other directions.
Right. Well, during that time, I was at UMass Lowell pursuing my career as a aspiring recording artist, and I had just put out, I think, like my second album at the time. And the other camp counselors started to play it like in their car, and then the campers found out that I rapped, And then sure enough, all the campers that rap would come up to me and be like, listen to this. And they would do a rap. And then this other camper would start beatboxing. And and then I would do one. And then we just bonded over that. And I just remember that sense of camaraderie and like, nobody was really trying too hard. It was just like we were just doing it together because we wanted to do it. And then it went from like 3 people to 6 people to 12 people. And then it felt like it was like 16 or 20 people that would gather around. I brought my keyboard in, and one of the students was really good at playing it. So he would play beats on that and we would sing and rap. And that was how it began.
I know one of the sort of mottos of Camp Harborview is have fun. Like whatever you're going to do there, if it's going to fill up your day, let's make sure that you're having a ball.
Oh yeah.
And that's what you give them. And I imagine that's where the music program really started. I just want to tell you a little story. The first year we worked with Camp Harborview, we worked with a wonderful Brazilian-born composer, Clarissa Saad, and she had a wonderful program that she was going to do around Brazilian folk music, and we did do with Camp Harborview and with Zoomix in East Boston and with some of the Boys and Girls Clubs. But the idea was that we would bring them these Brazilian folk songs and teach them to them, and that they would participate with us. And the kids, for the most part, were really shy, especially the guys. They didn't want to be singing. I think rap would have made more sense, but we'd move into the music room and they'd pull their chairs back, almost in fear of being called upon to participate.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh man, I didn't expect this group to be so shy. And then we went to lunch. Lunch consisted of, hot dogs and hamburgers and nonstop music. Everybody was singing, shouting, playing records, dancing, hugging each other. And I thought, okay, this is what we need to do at Landmarks. We don't need to do folk song singing. We need to figure out a way to do lunch.
Yep. And that's the key. It's like, that's what I always try to figure out. Like, how do you take the passion and the heart that they have and just create an environment where people feel comfortable enough to share that, and because the music is already in people. It's just a matter of, I don't know, making people feel comfortable enough to share, and that's been a key element.
You've always been described as the founder of the music program at Camp Harborview. So just tell us a little bit about that history before we get into specifics of the work we've done together.
So once there was too many people to crowd the pool deck, we moved down to like the porch area. And then, I had to ask one of the supervisors, like, is it okay if I like leave the pool deck to do this like club on the porch? And they were like, by all means, like they seem like they're having fun, go ahead. And then so it turned into more of like a club, like after lunch there's like club time. So we did that and it just went really well. And I remember there's a talent show like at the end of every session. So we took that club time and we did like our first big song. And that was when I was like, I really love this. And this isn't just like something I'm doing for fun, but this is something that like I'm passionate enough about this to want to like shape my career around this. And that was when the idea to pitch to the Camp Harborview people like, hey, can we pilot a music program here next summer? And they were quick to agree and quick to give me like a budget to like buy some equipment. They were quick to like say there was like this big cubby room that they were like, you can remove the cubbies and you could turn this into the space. So it was like, it didn't really take a lot of convincing, but I proposed the idea and they were behind it 100%. And that was when the next like decade of my life really started to take shape. And it changed like, it gave my like upbringing and my passion and my love for what I was doing, it gave it like a new purpose. And that was what I put into it at all those programs I was working at over the years.
Well, your talents, I think your particular combination of talents and the way in which you manifest them is unique in my experience, because you're a performer, you're a singer and an instrumentalist, and you do some drumming, you do a number of different things. You're a composer, you're a teacher, And yet I think the single most important thing that you are is you're a role model. You somehow know how to share your life, your values, what you believe in to your depth is going to be useful to these kids. And you somehow have a way to get them to really hear it, which is not easy with any group of teenagers.
Right. I appreciate that, Chris. That means a lot. And I guess like there's so much you could say about that. And it's hard to kind of like come up with a response right off the top. But the way I look at it is like, when I'm working with people, right, a group of young people, it's like, first and foremost, like I know that they have a lot to share with me, and they bring a lot to the table as creatives and musicians and lovers of music. And so I think it starts with like that mutual respect. Like, just because like it's almost like because I'm older and I have more experience, like I need them as much as they need me, because their fresh ears keep me relevant or keep my, like, you know what I mean? Like they bring that to the table. So I respect them and I admire them. And I think that makes it easy to get along.
Yeah.
And then it's like most music sessions like can begin with me just taking the time to listen to what they like. And since I study what they like and I listen to what they like, it's easy to kind of say, okay, if you guys like these artists, I can see that it's in a particular, like, hip hop is diverse. You know, there's a lot of different styles of it and ways artists bring it to the table. And so since I know a lot about that, it's easy for me to say, oh, if they like these two artists that fit into this lane, then they might like these producers and the way that these drums sound or the way that this synth pattern is lined up. And then based on that, we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to share about. And that's why it's like, I'm still excited about it. You know, that's why it stays like I'm encouraged to do it.
So it's so interesting. I think we say much the same thing that you say as a human being, as a person, as an individual, learning from young people about our organization, that we learn much more from our partners, I think, than we teach them. And it's what keeps us, I hope, increasingly relevant or current or up to date. So Landmarks Orchestra never charges anything for any concerts. We have zero admission. So everything that supports us is contributed income. So we have to be sure that we're generating community value or we'll go away. Right. How do we know when we're creating community value? It's by listening to what it is the community values.
Sure.
It's finding out what these kids in these programs feel that they need. And the more we sort of let go of what we think the program or the curriculum is and listen to what the kids at Camp Harborview want, or what our partners at the aquarium want, or, you know, what the folks who are involved in the disabilities initiatives that we have need from us. It's something we don't know about unless we sort of pay attention to what's being asked of us.
Right.
So along those lines, Devin, going both directions, what you're sharing and what you're learning, I want to move us toward playing one of the clips that we have of our performance together. Collaboration. It was a creative collaboration where you and the kids created work. And we have a clip from both 2018, 2 years ago, first time that we created this kind of thing with Camp Harborview, and from 2019. And I'm thinking, Arthur, if we can, maybe we start with 2018. This is a collaboration that you did movement-wise with Brian Mirage, movement, drumming, a wonderful orchestrator, Jacob Gunnar Walsh, who created, the question is, what does Landmarks do in something that's so much based on the vernacular, based on popular music or another culture? In this case, if we go back to 2018, it had a West African influence. So could you talk a little bit about Anke J, Anke Bay is the name of the work, what it means, what the inspiration for it was, and how the kids were involved in bringing it to life with you?
Right. So that year, we went around the theme, the Ubuntu theme. I am because we are, the concept that like we're stronger together as a community than we are as individuals. And, this was our first time this was like my first attempt to figure out how to really bring together, classical music and hip hop. And it was like two seemingly different genres of music from two different backgrounds of, performers. But it's like, I wanted to try to like show that we're not all that different, and we're actually stronger together. And that was where the Ubuntu theme, really came from. And so a lot of those rhythms and melodies that we came up with actually came from young people, like recording like drum beats that they made and singing melodies and recording them like on their phones or recording them at the Boys and Girls Club and then sending them to me. And me and Jacob Gunnar Walsh used those to kind of like flesh out the melodies, flesh out the productions.
So we have to say these were young people who might have been at the Mattapan Teen Center?
So when we got those little like dream seeds, those little instrumental little sections, those came from members at the Mattapan Teen Center.
Right. Okay. And I love that you had chosen the Ubuntu theme. I think at one point you said Nelson Mandela sort of popularized this idea that we bring meaning into our lives principally through community. Mm-hmm. And that communities thrive when we celebrate our connectedness.
Right.
And it's a beautiful theme for Camp Harborview. I think it's a beautiful theme for an orchestra. It's kind of what we symbolize, ideally. And it feels so much like what every community needs, and especially every community right now in this moment.
That's for sure.
So we're going to see music that was kind of co-created by you and these young people. And then Jake, who brought his own kind of magic to it.
Jake's awesome, huh?
Awesome. He's now teaching at college. Jake and I are very much in touch. He's doing another project for me with my other orchestra in Akron, Ohio, which we're really excited about.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love it.
Oh, that's good.
Give him your best. So just set this up. This is the opening 3 minutes or so. It goes from the beginning to, if you recall that part where Brian just kind of goes nuts on the stage, solo dancing. Very cool.
All right. Well, this is the world premiere of Anke J. Anke Bay with Camp Harborview, Mattapan Teen Center, and Landmark.
Creating discourse, searching for harmony, traveling this course, some fought for autonomy, moving towards unity through faith, fellowship, and community. Fostering a greater strength from togetherness, you exalt me when I'm down. Your power complements my weakness. Alone, we are islands. Together, we form an archipelago. Separate pieces united for a common goal. When the sum of the parts fall short when compared to the whole. Immerse yourself in this moment as history is made.
Cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
That was fun, wasn't it?
Oh, it's incredible, Devin.
Yeah.
Uh,
It was cool seeing it back.
yeah, I forgot to tell people that off to the far left, that was Jake, the composer.
Yeah.
I should say the composer orchestrator, your partner, creative partner, conducting.
Yeah.
So he was sort of shadow conducting, watching me, and then conducting you. You, of course, gave the poem, and which was an original.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then sat down and were sort of the captain of the drumming team.
Right. We had a few moving parts to make sure that all locked in together.
You remember the challenges we had that first year.
Yep.
It was. I mean, this is very typical because it's one of the things that we love to do. We love to step outside of our comfort zone. So we've done a lot of Caribbean music. We've worked in Armenian folk dance, Syrian folk and popular song. We did a wonderful thing with Korean drummers, and we're going to send out as future interludes some of this material, particularly the unusual things where we're trying to weave in and out of cultures that are unfamiliar to us. So we learn a lot in these, but it always creates extra challenges when you're really trying to speak two languages at once or find the commonalities. And with this, where we were involved really with American traditions of the African diaspora and some specific reference to West African culture, and then your own experience organizing music in a certain way with young people, and then how an orchestra typically works. Two totally different things.
Right.
What do you remember about those challenges and where we learned some lessons that first year about how to coordinate with greater ease or precision?
Right. I think what I learned from the first year is that if you're going to be trying to bring together an orchestra, djembes, like a whole bunch of, hand drums, plus dancers, plus lyrics, if you're going to have that many moving parts, you have to have a systematic approach that makes it easier to lock those pieces in together. So whether it's like a musical cue that is signaling when certain changes happen, whether the young people, because the young people need to be able to listen to it too, because I can't just be yelling at them to do this. So having something in the music that signifies when changes happen helps to remind the groups what happens next. And then also too, like, there's a little bit of a gap between maybe what I'm hearing and what the audience is hearing and what you're hearing because of the way things are set up. So that's why having Jake helped, because he could see you and because my back was to you. So Jake could see you and he was cueing us, which helped kind of tie it in a bit together.
There's another element that I think caught us a little bit by surprise, which is that there's such a difference between making music strictly live and making music when some elements are really set. So there's really was no way, I think I'm right about this, for the kids to rehearse this except to use the MIDI file, the electronically produced computer-generated file, which never changes. It's always the same thing.
Right.
So you come to a place and you're a minute and a half into the piece and they know they go, and it's always a minute and a half.
Right.
But in live performance, it's not 90 seconds, it's 95 seconds, or it's 83 seconds, or it's something else. And there's no way to rehearse that except in the live experience with the actual orchestra. And of course, professional orchestras are very efficient. It's not like we have 5 rehearsals. I think we maybe had 1.5 or something. So I think we learned some lessons around all of that.
Well, yeah, and it was nice that it got, well, for us anyway, it was nice it got rained out, because it gave us an extra day to meet up and talk it through. And I think a lot of we were able to talk through a lot of those changes the day before, which I think, brought us to having a really solid performance of that piece.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
So to them, of course, we were thrilled to just sign up again. That was just too much fun. So we had more fun in 2019, and I think you pretty quickly had an idea of what you wanted to do. It seemed like the first time we met, you had a really solid idea of a theme and sort of a shape and a clearer sense of how you want to go about it.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if this is wrong, but I think it was also an extension of prior work that you've been doing at the Mattapan Teen Center through the Celebrity Series. And you even developed kind of a leadership and training idea with, didn't you have some young people who were a little bit older who were kind of serving as musical role models maybe for some of the younger kids? Is that how it worked, or they were helping you compose it?
Are we talking about the second summer?
That last summer, 2019.
How did that one come about? So we definitely had been doing, I still have been doing some work. I think I might have been did a program with Boston Lyric Opera that summer that brought me to the Mattapan Teen Center. So I was doing some work with those young people. They definitely were producing a lot of music.
Oh, you did a hip hop opera.
We did do a hip hop opera.
Yeah.
And I think that was that last summer or the summer before?
That was last spring, a year ago. So
we had been doing a lot of work with those guys. The song that came about this year, or the past summer that we had, I think what we did this time was Jake and I went through a bunch of the productions that I had made like the previous year, and he grabbed a bunch of the pieces he liked and we fleshed that out. And then for the drum section, I said something that I need if I'm going to rap, because the first year we did more of a spoken word piece, but I was like, if I'm going to rap on this, it needs to have a more steady drum track. And he's like, well, I'm not sure what you want me to do for the drums. So I beatboxed a bunch of drums for him. And he ended up taking a bunch of those, drum rhythms I was giving him. And then he wove those in. So on the second summer, you'll hear much more of a steady, a boom bap kind of style, drum beat. That's why you'll hear me in the second time, you'll hear me actually doing a rap that's locked into the beat, which was really fun.
Right. He was brilliant at that. So, Arthur, because we're going to take some questions here in a little bit. Let's set up this next clip. So this is from last summer. You had quite a clear concept of what this piece was to be about, both in terms of how you would generate the musical material, but also, again, back to what are the lessons for life that you wanted to impart to these kids?
Well, the year that we had the performance that we did last summer was, I wanted to dive into the history of hip hop a bit and talk about the 4 elements of hip hopping: emceeing, DJing, break dancing and graffiti art. And we really focused on you know, the emceeing, the break dancing, and also like the kind of the cultural and the world music aspects of it. So we had a great new choreographer that we got a chance to work with, Chanel. She goes by Miss 5678, so she might be tuned in right now. So shout out to Chanel. And she brought like an awesome, just attitude and personality, to the production. And so you'll see her, leading the dance movements. They had flags and stuff like that was kind of like representing different countries. And then when I go and step up to do the rap, I talk about, my lyrics are talking about kind of the history of hip hop. And you'll hear me like mention some of the, the influential hip hop artists of this generation, like of the founding forefathers of hip hop. And ultimately, like, just part of what I love about hip hop is its roots and its heritage and its culture. And I think it's important that if, especially with young people, we're going to enjoy hip hop as we know it today. It's also like important to learn about the history. And it's like, it's one of the newer, genres. And it's like some of the founders of this genre are still alive. And so there's no better time than now to like learn about the history and weave that into the music that we're making to this day. And that was kind of the heart that I wanted to like put into this production.
Okay, then we have one other element that was added last summer, very unusual, which was projection mapping. So images projected onto the hat shell itself. Let's let people see it before we explain what it is. But we scheduled this piece late enough at night that it was dark.
Yep.
And could include that. So now it's music, drumming, rap, and original poetry, singing, movement, dancing, all in one.
Think about my life, I think about my shows, I think about my life, I think about my shows. I sit here and write with some of the greatest composers. I'm talking about Biggie and Nas, I'm talking about Jay-Z, talking about New York, the city that made me. I'm talking about hip-hop, it's where it came alive with Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. I'm talking about block parties, I'm talking about break beats. And when the mic opened to people with slang speech, hip-hop was there, problems that help you get through them. But hip-hop's mad about what these new rappers did to the original. That's what I respect, when hip-hop was real life and writing was your intellect. Hip-hop's in my veins, rhymes and flows, I bleed them. Sometimes I wonder, is KRS when you need them? Good or bad, there's a plan, it might not be your own, but music's what I'm making as I'm taking my throne. I'm gonna walk with my people, talk to my people, live with my people, gon' give to my people, gon' go. Don't stop, I said put your hands up, hip-hop, come on.
That's awesome. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was so much fun.
Looks so beautiful, doesn't it?
It looks awesome.
So
it really pops, with the lights and the way the stage was lit up and the projection just looked really cool.
what was the kids' experience? What were the young people's, what they come away with?
So I think there was this one interaction I had with one of the campers that kind of summed it up. Was she was one of the young ladies who sang that solo during the piece, right? And she actually was the one who wrote those lyrics, and the lyrics were something like "living my best life." That was the part that kept coming up. Well, before she went on, she was like overwhelmed with like fear and anxiety and excitement and all those emotions, you know, like because she was really, you know, it was her voice that was going out. It was, you know, she was going to take a solo. And to the point where she had big tears drop down, you know, and I'm looking at her, I'm like, you can do this. And sure enough, she did. And she did a phenomenal job. And then after the show, she said to me that, you know, the reason why she wrote the song was because her dream was to perform in front of people and to do shows. And she never really had that opportunity before. And she said like, that all her dreams and aspirations actually came true in that moment when she got to share that. And the lyrics that she wrote, you know, became like true for her. And I just felt like, you know, her saying that kind of like, it made me realize, like, it reminded me again and again that like these moments are so special for young people and so formative for young people. And some people like her can express it, but other people, like, they experience it and they have a hard time maybe saying it because they're more, you know, there's different types of people. But I think that experience for them is formative and it changes, you know, like, can you imagine the next time that, like, there's like a couple thousand people, maybe even more, like at that show, right? So next time she goes to get up in front of her class to do a presentation, she'll be like, I did this before, you know, like, I'm not nervous because I'm confident in myself. I know that my words and my message and my voice can project and has, like, you know, power behind it. And I think that's what it means to these young people. It's like really impacting their lives in a positive way.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that she wrote that herself, I mean, it's a double way in which this experience gives her a voice. She has her voice, but is it acknowledged? Is it something that downtown Boston in front of several thousand people is appropriate to hear? And the answer is, oh, it's the best. It's what we're all about. I mean, we're about extending community beyond what we normally think of as being community that would be at the Hat Shell, or community that's appropriate for an orchestra or for the arts or whatever it is. But I think what essentially what you were saying there, more than anything, it's a way of acknowledging that each of those young people are expressive, powerful, gifted, you know, amazing people, and giving them that kind of it's pressure, and I'm sure it's not easy for them, but as they break through that, you can just see from the evidence there of how powerful it really is, and it's just a beautiful thing. But I'll say, Devin, it's not easy to pull that together, and it just takes a special gift, and that's why I'm just all admiration.
I appreciate it. And I was going to say this earlier, but I love working with Landmarks, and I love working with you guys. And one of those reasons is because everything that you guys say you're going to do about impacting the community and listening to partners and like figuring out what people's needs are and how you can support the community, like, you guys definitely, you know, do that, and you lead in that area by action. And I've always felt that way working with you guys. And that was why I felt like from the moment I met you guys at the Teen Center, you guys were a program that I really wanted to always stay connected with, and have been just so blessed to be able to work with you guys throughout the years.
So when you said, I want to do something on the history of hip hop, it's like, okay, how the heck do we do that? All right. So we sort of figured out a way to do it. Let's just say a little bit more about hip hop, because I know that for you, a really important thing is to understand what you believe to be the fundamental messaging that's inherent in hip hop, that maybe people have gotten off track a little bit in their idea of what the heart or the inspiration or the purpose of hip hop really is or was. I mean, it's now what, 50-year-old art form, but
right.
It's the most current art form that we have, and every young person is involved with it.
Right.
Talk about the messaging that you wanted to convey through this experience.
Well, so, if you go back to the Bronx in the 70s, it was a violent place to be, and there was a lot of crime and just kind of negativity. And the thing about hip hop, it was like a set apart. So it's like you could step into the hip hop arena, like do the shows and do the stuff, but they said like, hey, you can participate, but keep the negativity and the violence and all that stuff away, and hip hop is supposed to be a thing that promotes peace, love, and positivity. And that was kind of how it got momentum as a peaceful movement. And then it evolved over the years. And then, because at the end of the day, like if you're going to be rapping, it's a very like visceral art form. Like what I'm saying to you is the message you're going to get. So you could put whatever messages you want into it. And so it can go left. You know what I mean? You can say whatever, people can say whatever they want now and record it, and you never know what's going to happen. But part of me doing this piece is like, I wanted to remind people that hip hop, the inception of hip hop and like why it's so important to me is because it is about peace, love, and positivity. And, it gave young people an opportunity and a voice to like share their message. And I think it still is that to this day. And that's what I wanted to convey in this piece. And I think, I think we did that. I think when it was all said and done, people got that. Yeah.
I think that's sort of the magic of music, right? Is that it can bring feeling of any human dimension into the experience. And so for hip hop, it was kind of an oasis away from something. And here it's sort of an injection of good feelings. And I think through the music you created and the way the kids performed it and the way that Jake orchestrated it, it just has a really good vibe about it. Yeah. Now Arthur, do you want to play one more clip, or are you going to take?
I think we should maybe end with one more clip. But before we get to that, we did have a couple questions come in.
Yeah. All right.
And you've answered some of them, but this is actually a question for both of you to answer separately. What was the reaction, Devin, of the young people when they got to the first rehearsal with the orchestra and saw these people playing these instruments and stuff that they'd maybe only seen in movies or not been exposed to directly? And Chris, how has the orchestra reacted to some of these projects we've taken on? These are players that have played all kinds of music in all kinds of places, and we've taken them on some unusual journeys. And if you could speak a little bit to how the orchestra has reacted to our collaborations.
Yeah.
Well, the young people, they always, they're resilient, so they're always trying to figure it out. Like, okay, how is this going to work? But they've always been the young people have been really kind of flexible and easy to work with. And we try to tell them as much as we can in advance so that they're not surprised. Sometimes there's anxiety. There's a little bit of like reluctancy, or their nervous energy maybe comes out by being a little chatty or like wandering around a little bit. So you got to keep everyone together and make sure you keep them updated with as much information as you can. And then be very encouraging. Say that we didn't have a good rehearsal or something didn't go as planned, to just like reassure them that everything's going to be okay and that the show is going to be good. And it always happens, and it always does happen. I think that performance always brings out the best in them.
Yeah, I would say from the orchestra side, orchestras are by nature efficient operations, right? Time is money. We have a very limited amount of time to rehearse things, often very difficult music, and get it out. But what happens with Landmarks is that in addition to all of that, we are constantly throwing them curveballs and unusual things and collaborating with everybody under the sun. And what it requires is a lot of flexibility, also versatility. If we're playing Latin jazz, that's a really rather different type of music making. So it requires different kind of skills. And I will say that to a person, they are fabulously understanding about being flexible, wanting to be flexible, wanting to adjust or make it work. I think everybody understands the community message of Landmarks. I mean, one of our great advantages is everybody pretty much gets what we're about. We don't have to explain what's special about our mission. Now, there are up to 80 people, professional, best musicians in Boston on the stage at any given time, there are at least 80 opinions about, what's working, what isn't working, what, did this little experiment, was ill-advised or was a good idea or whatever. But I think that as a collective body, it's not really about opinion so much, it's about purpose. And I think everybody gets the purpose. And I will say it's a supremely professional ensemble. Whatever we need to have done, the attitude is we'll get it done. And I will say too that with Landmarks, because it's summer, because it's less formal and we're outdoors and all of that, we too very much have the motto, have fun. We're out there to have fun, and we make that clear. And I think it's clear to the audience that we invite them to get up and move. And we have the Maestro Zone where the young kids come up and conduct. And I think the players bring that same spirit to it.
Absolutely. I felt the same way when I talked to players in rehearsal and backstage, that we do such different things and reach so many different communities. They're very grateful to be part of it, and I'm grateful for them for being so flexible. I want to show one more clip from last summer, and then maybe we'll just have a few comments.
Before you do that, we really explain what the projections are. Can you speak just a little bit, Devin, about Ryan Edwards and Masari and how this was put together on the island?
Sure. So the projection that you see on the Hatch Shell is a creation of Masari Studios with Ryan Edwards and Samo, who helped bring that to life. They basically came out to the island one day and filmed the campers and some of the staff dancing behind a green screen. And they used those images to create like a silhouette of the dancers. Then they put that into a computer program that was able to map that on the Hatch Shell. So when you see like a silhouette of a dancer on the Hatch Shell, that's actually one of the campers or one of the staff or our collaborators that's actually moving to the music, and that's what you see up on the Hatch Shell.
Great. So let's look at a second clip from our 2019 collaboration featuring the students from Camp Harborview, Mattapan Teen Center, and Masari Studios.
Cool.
There you go. That sounds so good.
It's really a pleasure to see that again and to imagine nights at the Hatch Shell again and summer and the community coming together. And we know that will happen again. We don't know exactly when, but it will. Yeah. But this, at least to me, reminds me of what the goal is and why we all want to come together and make music for this city. So thank you, Devin and Chris, for joining us tonight. It was fascinating to hear a little bit more about your background and your thinking process, Devin.
Devin, thank you so much for spending this hour with us. It's been a blast. Miss you terribly.
My pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. Thank you to everyone at Landmarks, everyone tuned in. Thank you guys for the support. And Arthur, we will someday again perform. And until then, it is a pleasure connecting with you guys, and would love to continue to do so virtually and keep the music alive.
Thanks for all you do, Devin.
And I want to say to everybody watching, thank you for watching this evening. This is part of a whole series of digital content we're bringing you. If you want to be notified when the next thing is happening and you're not on our mailing list, check out our website at Boston, www.landmarksorchestra.org. You can also make a donation there if you're so inclined. Everything we do is free and we need your support. So good night, everyone, and see you soon.